Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 12th, 2020, Grand Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's a happy and a sad day all in the same stroke. I'm happy that they've canceled all of these sporting events not to, expose athletes to the possibility of transmitting this coronavirus that's going on. But it's sad now I got to listen to all these politicians lie to me every day.
You can always put the TV on mute, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, I know that we have, again, it's called being prescient, which is knowledge of things before they happen. There's no Wizard of Oz. Sometimes the universe really will allow you to feel things through your gut. Big C, this National Veterans Crisis Line that you started giving out right around the summertime of last year, and there are people who are experienced at helping veterans and their loved ones. How precious was that? 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can get some help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it is so important because we have so many great veterans going through troubling times in this country, and even more now that this epidemic has hit the land here in America, Charlton, that these veterans don't have opportunities that other people have had because many of them are homeless and destitute. Many suffer from mental illness, Charlton, and many have turned to suicide at a horrific rate. This disease has captivated the nation, and it's been forgotten about now because of coronavirus, Charlton. But these veterans still suffer every day, regardless of what other Americans have to go through. And I'm not trying to shed, a shadow over anybody.
No.
But our veterans need to find ways to get help. You know, we talk about all the news outlets telling the citizens what to do. Think about when a veteran's homeless, Charlton. He doesn't have a media outlet to sit down and listen to on a daily basis to find out where help is.
Yeah.
I know you give out the online, websites that they can go to. I understand public libraries have access to, computers where they might be able to do that. But if you're suffering from mental illness, you're not going to remember a website to go to.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult for many of them to call the 800 National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, because they don't have access to a phone service.
Yeah.
But we have to find a way in this country, just like we're ramping up against the coronavirus, to ramp up against mental illness. This is a disease that has been existing for decades in this country and has been forgotten an entity even amongst our veterans.
And that's why we love giving up that number. Sometimes it won't be the person needing help, but somebody who knows them can reach out and help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. I want to make sure that I keep letting people know, especially the people in real estate, launching a real estate show in the spring of 2020. Already away in some markets, the goal is to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it, just like the car dealership that you bought your car from and that you're driving now, they do it. Sports companies, they do it, even though a lot have been canceling their sporting events. People watch TV. Put the TV to work for you and your real estate needs. You can do that with the Big C team. Big C, you talked about politicians. Would you believe Mitch McConnell? He's actually calling for Congress to get together and have a meeting about what? They've already told us we don't need health care. They've already said that people don't need Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. They've already taken money out. They've already tried to defund that. So why is he calling members together for Congress now? His friend, right-hand man in POTUS, says that this was a joke just about a couple of weeks ago. So have they started reading, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Mitch McConnell, Charlton, is not about the American people. If you understand that the House has already passed a bill to move forward with to help out the American citizens. But the Senate and the White House say they don't like the wording of it.
Yeah.
Because it's about helping the everyday citizen, Charlton, not bailing out the millionaires and billionaires. It's about helping the middle class.
Yeah.
Congress, the Senate is not looking forward to that. Congress is trying to help those people that are going to be unemployed, that are going to be out of work. And I put a lot of emphasis, Charlton, on the everyday worker in America, the people who work in the service industry.
Yeah.
These people are going to be more affected than anybody in America. I know we do a show about sports, but we're talking about the everyday person in America, the people who cannot afford to go to sporting events, the people who are struggling every day to put food on the table for their family, trying to pay their bills, their utilities, Charlton, trying to make sure they have transportation to get to that job that they're not going to be able to go to now because of the affliction from this coronavirus.
Yeah.
When we look at the House of Representatives, they passed a relief bill, Charlton, to help those people out. The Senate is not in line with that because the White House is saying it doesn't help out my friends.
Yeah, it's all about friends, and everybody has friends. But it's again, and it's a sad dog that won't wag his own tail. I'm talking because there are a lot of sponsors that put a lot of money behind programming, whether it's sports, whether it's a podcast, a TV program, a sporting event. They put a lot of money behind it. But if you're putting money behind something, don't you want to make sure it's accurate? And I want to just say that when we started doing our program, we said we'd call it Real Talk because I don't believe in ogling over athletes. I've been around it long enough. I don't believe in pretending that I'm going to yell louder than you, so therefore my opinion is more valid than you. But I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Our show aired 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That was Wednesday. At about 6:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, about 9:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it came out that the NBA had postponed the season. If anyone can Google what we were saying, and I'm talking to sponsors that pay tens of millions of dollars to people to get your message across. And now a lot of people have to capitulate because they're just now catching up to what Big C's been saying for the last month. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the major capitulation, Charlton, came from the president last night when he was in the Oval Office giving a speech that seemed like he couldn't even read the teleprompter on, that he had no knowledge of what was on that script that his staff had written out for him. This was a guy who said that this was no big deal, that it would go away once the weather turned warm, Charlton. And when you're the commander-in-chief in a time of crisis in any country, I don't care whether we're in the U.S., Mexico, Canada, Russia, China, Great Britain, you have to have confidence in what you're delivering to your people. And here's a guy who's been lying for the past several weeks to the American public and even his base and even the Senate that is Republican-led, Charlton, saying that this is going to be fine, that we'll have enough medical test kits, that they will be out in great force. Dr. Fauci came out today. This is the medical expert saying, we've lost the battle.
Yeah.
We're weeks behind from where we should be. We don't have enough test kits to test the American public. He said there could be 1 million Americans afflicted right now. This is what Dr. Fauci said today.
Yeah.
Amid what the president said, well, it's been limited people exposed. Dr. Fauci said we could have 1 million people affected in America, and we do not have the test kits to test them.
Wow.
And the president made a statement a couple of weeks ago, as soon as the weather gets warm, all of this is going to go away. Now, there's an actor that's world-renowned, Tom Hanks. Everybody knows him as Woody from the Toy Story series, all 4 movies. Great actor.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, and he's out of your area. He went to school there at Oakland Tech at Oakland, California.
Yeah.
He's in Australia with his wife, Rita Wilson. It's summertime in Australia. The temperature is over 100 degrees. He and his wife both have tested positive for the coronavirus. Now, remember, your president, Donald Trump, said it will go away when the weather gets warm. It will disappear completely. Now, they're in a 100-degree environment, and he's banned transportation from around the world coming into the U.S. He didn't ban Australia. Tom Hanks is in Australia, and anybody from Australia can come to the U.S., whether they, are affected with the coronavirus or not.
Yeah.
But this is how dumbfounding the president is when he's capitulating on television, telling you that the virus is no big deal, it's going to go away, we're going to have testing for every American. There's been only 5 out of every 1 million Americans tested in this country. Do the math. 5 out of every 1 million.
Yeah.
That means we're so far behind, and when Dr. Fauci came out today and said that there could be at least 1 million Americans affected with their virus, and they don't even know about it.
Dr. Fauci has served 6 presidents' administrations, Big C, so he knows what he's talking about. I'd rather hear from him than Mike Pence any day of the week. Ironically, and this is just, we're all human. We don't have to be sycophants to anybody's label. They didn't earn it by God, they earned it by people. POTUS, he looked stumped in his press conference, but not even fake news could cover up the fact when it comes to medical science, Big C. The press secretary of the Brazilian president tested positive for the coronavirus. He was with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago just last week. Just like a lot of people, like Dr. Fauci talked about, have that virus, they don't know they haven't been tested. If an NBA
think
player...
about it. Lindsey Graham was at that meeting also talking, and he is self-quarantined himself. We're talking about the commander-in-chief of the United States and the vice president.
Yeah.
If you want to put at ease and put down political barriers and talk about working across the aisle, as a person to assure Americans that this country is semi-safe, Charlton, you and the vice president both, President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, should take the coronavirus test and let the results become public, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about being bipartisan as a country, being a leader, supposed to be the consoler in chief, then you should be the first in line to say, I'm going to go out there and show America that I'm willing to take the test and let the results be known.
Let the results be known, but it's the same guy that had 5 deferments from serving in this country. And I'm only saying this because I want to make sure, I have people in my family that are old and young, and I want to make sure that I do my part to at least disseminate honest information, not propaganda, not hyperbole, but things that are medically and scientifically factual. Our reputation as leaders of the world, the United States, even Ronald Reagan, irrespective of how people thought about him, he talked about trust but verify. We got to verify that what we tell people is true. I want to make sure that I have as much knowledge as I can. And unfortunately, Big C, a lot of people just don't read anymore. And they only watch sports. They don't even know who Dr. Fauci is, but they know the leading basketball scorer in the NBA. They know who has
it started a couple years ago when other world leaders and even people in the media that Trump calls the fake news started saying that America was starting to become the laughing stock around the world because we had this guy who wanted to be a dictator, and he was getting rid of relationships that had been in place forever with other foreign countries and foreign leaders, Charlton, wanted to be on his own.
Yeah.
And now that you need all of those other countries, Charlton, to help you out, they're not there for you. It's like last night in his speech from the Oval Office when he blindsided all of these European nations with this travel ban.
Our allies.
And he didn't let these people know what was going on. Charlton, we have world trade going on.
Yeah.
When you don't have supplies coming into the U.S., and as much as he wants to talk negative about China, 25% of our production of electronics and everything else comes out of China in this country. We're not self-sufficient without China helping out this country. All the electronic devices that we deal with come out of China. All the televisions we watch come out of China. So when America thinks that they can function without China, 80% of our medications come out of China.
Yep.
So let the president keep fooling everybody saying America first, America first. No, we're the first in line to buy from China. That's why he was talking about the trade deficit, because we are so vested in China and we rely on them.
Yeah.
And so as much as he want to mock China, and we're talking about this coronavirus, where does the 80% of the antibiotics in the world come from? China, Charlton. So we need China to fight this epidemic.
You know, I tell you, and we'll get into it more later, as I tell you, black men, run the NBA. They have 53% of the bargaining power when it comes to the income shared, the shared income that comes to it, Big C. And I know guys like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh, the guys that could probably use health care the most, even though they may have it from their companies, and they laughed and scoffed with the president, saying it was a Democratic ploy too. Well, New York City, they deployed the National Guard to New Rochelle, which is called a containment area. That's New York City. That's POTUS's stomping ground from back in the day, Big C. So there's a lot of smart people that use science and also healthcare to make sure that we all have our facts together. I want to just get your thoughts on something. And I know a lot of people that were just so dumb, they only want to know who won a game, how big and tall somebody is. I hear those guys reading. They're actually reading things that might keep their own children safe. House Democrats and leader Nancy Pelosi, they're pushing for free coronavirus testing for all Americans. Would you believe Republicans are pushing back against that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, we talked about that yesterday, Charlton, that they had proposed that in the House. And Republicans saying no, because their lobbyists are from the insurance companies, and they're saying the insurance companies want to be paid for this free testing. No, they want to be paid for the testing. They do not want to give away anything free. That's when you were talking about, do people care about money or do they care about health? And I told you money was in the forefront beyond health, Charlton, because those people that are in charge of those companies and in the Senate, they have lifetime medical coverage, Charlton. They don't worry about what the layman person does.
Yeah.
And when you talked about New Rochelle, New York, the reason why it was quarantined is that one attorney from New Rochelle, New York, Charlton, had left the country and come back in.
Yep.
He had been in contact with 50 people, Charlton. This attorney's in the hospital. He had direct contact with 50 people in New Rochelle area, Charlton, that have tested positive for the coronavirus. You think about it. One U.S. citizen infected 50 other U.S. citizens, Charlton, because they were clients or associates with the coronavirus.
Yeah, I guess it's not fake news anymore, Big C, as a lot of people. And it's so important because we gotta be able, as they say, trust our leaders. I never trusted leaders. I only trust what I can verify. And I implore people, we're all one community. The United States of America and every country on this planet, we're all affected by the same thing. And on the sports side of things, as it was announced, Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz also tested positive for the coronavirus. This pandemic has no cure yet. It doesn't mean it's going to be fatality, but it also means there's no cure yet. So now it becomes more real, Big C, when Donovan Mitchell, the Utah Jazz, NBA basketball player, what are there, 15 players on each team? So that's 30 players on the floor at the same time. And then you have referees, you have coaches. Even if they were to keep fans away, now you're Rudy Gobert, being a knucklehead because some people don't listen, they don't read, and he's playing around with microphones and touching other people's gadgets that who knows if they're going to test positive, but it's more real. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, NBA player didn't make it real. Tom Hanks, when Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson came out publicly, Charlton, it took me back to two other times in U.S. history when an academic had a face of popularity on it, Charlton. In 1984, Rock Hudson came out, one of the greatest names in Hollywood during his era.
That's right.
Announcing that he was suffering from the AIDS virus. And then again, Charlton, in the early 90s, Magic Johnson came out saying that he was suffering from the HIV virus. These are people that everybody from around the world recognized. A lot of people know Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
But he was not world-renowned like Rock Hudson and Magic Johnson and Tom Hanks, Charlton. When you put a face on it like those individuals, then people can take a step back and say, this is real. But until a face that everybody recognizes formally announces that they've been affected by this, Charlton, people will take a step back and say, well, I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah.
But Tom Hanks, when he came out last night, really put the human factor on this coronavirus because everyone around the world, at every continent that you go to, knows the face and the voice of Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is just a basketball player. Tom Hanks is an ambassador around the world.
Yeah, and I wish everybody well. We all need access to health care and science, not hyperbole. Big C, again, being prescient again, the NCAA that's made billions of dollars on black labor for the most part. 80% of the basketball players at D1 are black. That's just a fact. NCAA decided to finally, I don't know if it took them so long, they're like the caboose on a train with Mark Emmers, Big C. They canceled the men's and women's college basketball tournament, and all remaining NCAA championships have been canceled. And it took them until today. If we've been following China, in Italy, they grabbed every piece of money they could grab before they told those young black athletes, for the most part, 80% of them, but we're going to put your health in important too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is what I explained to you the other day when I told you that the NCAA had more access to the world than the NBA, as far as its athletes from continents all around the world and countries, Charlton. The NCAA is a pandemic mixture of athletes from every corner of the world. When you look at all the sports that participate in the NCAA, not just basketball, but all other sports, the NCAA leads the world in athletic competition other than the Olympics.
Yeah.
And for Mark Emmers and the NCAA finally coming together, the board of governors saying the health risk outweighs everything else.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do. We need to cancel all this. Let the government figure out where this country is as a society against this pandemic, Charlton.
Yeah.
And I was proud of Mark Emmers today. This is the first time I've ever been proud of him. I was appalled at him before when he said, okay, we're just going to play without tournaments.
Yeah.
Without spectators, and we're going to put the players at risk. The players pass more fluids amongst each other than any other people in the arena, regardless of the sport that you're playing. And the Canadians in North America took it first when they canceled the World Figure Skating Championship.
Yeah.
That's on ice where they said, they're not really touching each other that much, Charlton. They don't have as much contact as basketball players, as hockey players. But now that all North American sports have suspended or canceled for the rest of the year, or majority of the year until they get this figured out, I'm proud of all the leaders of the professional leagues, Charlton. Even the XFL canceled today, so that lets you know where the NFL is. And now this is really going to affect NFL free agency, because now you're not going to be able to fly players around, fly them in, do personal interviews in person, give them physicals. You're going to have to handle everything over FaceTime or Skype, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is affecting sports in every way. Now that they're not playing, how are you going to have contact with them?
That's very true. I remember, as you mentioned, Rock Hudson and Magic Johnson and there's a lot of other people. I think Arthur Ashe. A lot of people, when they came forward and mentioned that they...
But those two people, Charlton, put a human face to it.
They put a human
Rock
face
Hudson
to it.
was as big a star in Hollywood as it was in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
And when he announced that he was suffering from the AIDS virus, it put a face on it in America. Everyone else thought that it was just the Castro District in San Francisco or New York and Greenwich Village, Charlton, and it was just a few people and a certain lifestyle. And then after his passing, Magic Johnson came out several years later, Charlton, and that put a face on sports. Hollywood was the first face with Rock Hudson.
Yeah.
Then the face on sports was Magic Johnson. And it took individuals like that, Charlton, to let the world know that people were vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think this is what has happened again with Tom Hanks and the NBA going on hold with, as well as the NCAA. Now that you've put prominent institutions in the face of this, Charlton, maybe we'll get some more insight and help from the public, from the government in this situation, because Tom Hanks is as big in the world as it gets as far as entertainment, and the NBA is a global phenomenon.
Yeah, the big Forrest Gump phenom. I mean, everybody knows with the HIV virus that was out there in the early 90s, actually really in the 80s and 90s, they have now, because of science, come up with medications that can make that virus at almost undetectable levels. Science did that, not hyperbole, not some political party. So I really just appreciate that as a sports community. I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak from my own opinion. I'm glad that even a lot of the dumb radio talk shows that would just shout down people that had anything to do with a conversation that did not lead to who was bigger, stronger, or faster. I see a lot of those guys capitulated today. I really appreciate that. We could all learn. But what I also thought was a little bit disingenuous, Big C, not naming any specific coach, but I did hear some great coaches, and maybe they're just speaking from the heart. Who can tell them how they should feel? I really feel sad that some of our boys, they won't be able to play in a tournament that they worked their whole lives to get to, their whole season to get to, and maybe they played their last game, and I really feel bad for them. If you juxtapose that to having the player come down with coronavirus, which one would you rather feel bad about? So, it's one thing to say we feel sad that someone can't play a game, but I'd rather feel sad if someone ended up in the hospital for a pandemic than crying lacrimose tears that they can't play a game. Big C, does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, I'll toss out a name, Charlton. I heard Tom Crean, the coach of the University of Kansas, said we play this game and we coach this game because for the love of the game. He didn't say anything about his $7 million contract.
No.
He said he does it for the love of the game. He didn't say he does it for $7 million a year.
Yeah.
So when I hear a coach making statements on television and he's flat out lying because he's doing it for the love, not the $7 million that he's making, and the players are not getting paid, this is, in a way that I'm really glad that college basketball has canceled, Charlton.
Me too.
Because of the manipulation and the exploitation of the student athletes that have gone on for decades.
Yeah.
That these coaches are out there making millions of dollars, and they're crying right now because they're not going to get their tournament bonuses. You got to realize every coach that would have been coaching in the NCAA tournament had bonuses written into his contract for hundreds of thousands of dollars, even in the million category for some coaches, Charlton, for as many games as they won or if they won it all.
Yeah.
So that's what's bothering them. They can sit there and say, my concerns about the young men who will not get an opportunity to play in this tournament.
Free.
But what is the university going to do to them about their bonuses since they're not going to be able to play in the tournament? They're going to be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. To me, that's what they were more concerned about.
Yeah, they always talk about, I'm sad that my player can't play for free. What about the player's health and taking the health back to their classmates when they go to class? Most players do go to class. Even if they get pushed through, they go to class. And the fact that I'm glad they canceled this tournament too, Big C. You go into class, you're sweating, trading blood, sweat, tears, body fluid, and then you go back to your class of between 50 and 150 students, and now you get people that may come in contact, just like, POTUS came in contact with a gentleman from Brazil. There's so many people that need to just put science first. I've always been a big, avid believer in science. I will make just one little juxtaposition to the announcement of the NCAA. Remember how the Ivy League came out earlier this week? And they put a cancellation. They canceled their tournament. Well, the Ivy League players, for the most part, are Caucasian kids. The NCAA March Madness is laden with African-American kids. So I'm also a little bit cynical when I saw that there was more effort to protect the young kids that play sports for the Ivy League. For the most part, they're Caucasian and maybe come from a higher economic bracket. The last thing that they did was put the majority of the people who make the $1 billion first, and that's black kids. And they didn't say it until today. So you might be proud of Emeritus Big C, but it's a little bit like the caboose on the train. I'd rather him be the car on the train, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, Charles, I'm glad that he and the Board of Governors finally came to their senses and canceled the tournament. Because the exploitation has been going on forever. 38% of the Ivy League basketball players are African American in the Ivy League. But this is an institution as far as that Ivy League that deals with academics. Academics first, athletics second.
Yeah.
The rest of the country does not deal in that way, Charlton. It's about athletics first, academics second. Because you don't see Ivy League coaches with $4 and $5 million a year contracts.
No.
Those are the guys who coach for the love of the game. Yes, they get paid, but they coach for the love of the game. The thing that bothers me the most, Charlton, is when they canceled the NBA last night. You talked about the economics of the NBA is that every one of those owners is a multi-billionaire, okay?
Yeah.
He's not hurting for income.
Nope.
What are those owners going to do as a collective group, Charlton, to take care of their arena employees? That's what I look at. What are you going to do as the ownership? Because these owners generally got getting those facilities built, Charlton, got taxpayers' money to fund these huge, lavish arenas that are built that these teams play in.
Yeah.
The Chase Center there in San Francisco got a lot of taxpayer money to build that facility, as well as every other basketball arena around the country. And even the NCAA canceling, Charlton, what we look at is all the concessionaires and vendors in these arenas.
Yeah.
They rely on these games and events to be held in these arenas, Charlton, to pay their bills, to feed their kids, to keep a roof over their head.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the millionaire athletes in hockey and basketball that play in there and the millionaire college coaches that play in these arenas, but we're talking about the everyday attendant that has to work 250 to 300 events a year in these facilities to keep a roof over their head. Now that all the events in these arenas have been canceled, Charlton, these are the people I'm concerned about, not the damn athletes who are well off, who have the money in the bank, but the people who are living paycheck to paycheck from event to support themselves.
Well, that's why I implore them to listen to Big C Sports. We're going to take what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. I hear a lot of other sports shows saying, hey, let's just take a pause. We'll take the Big C Pause. We'll be back in just a moment. I want to talk more. I really want to talk more about how sports and science and politics, it all makes us Big C. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on an app that I love called Google. Our Alexa, just say Google. Our Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also, launching a real estate TV listing channel in the spring of 2020. And the goal is simple. Get 100 real estate brokers to list their properties on TV. McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And then sports companies, of course, do it also. And you can do the same thing with your real estate when you join the Big C team. We'll be launching that very soon. And really looking forward to that. You know, to be Malthusian, Big C, is hitting the world where you have population control. There's ways to control population, and sometimes it's through war, or sometimes it's through disease. But I want to say something that's so important because you talked about it yesterday. The Centers for Disease Control, I believe, is headquartered in Georgia, down near Atlanta somewhere. And I know the administration cut funding to it about 2 years ago. As we turn to this xenophobia about building a wall to keep out people from Latin America, Big C, from coming into miscegenating with white Americans for the most part is what it's been, even though they won't say miscegenation, that's what it's for. And that same amount of money trying to get to build a wall, had he been precious enough to trust science and to trust the medical and scientific community, instead of ginning up this xenophobia and this jingoistic view that we're all white Americans, he could have been putting that money into stopping a pandemic that other countries were already working on. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I can guarantee you that the president is trying to put a spin on that this pandemic has come from south of the border, that is coming in through Mexico, that is coming from illegals that are crossing the border carrying it. You'll hear that on Fox News within the next week, that is coming from the southern border.
Yeah.
We already know that it's come from Europe and Asia, Charlton, afflicting America, but especially when it's coming from Europe, those people look like American. They are white. They're Anglo-Saxon. I don't care how you want to cross, carry that. They're white. The Asians, when you think about the Asian population in the United States, Charlton, and the trade that we do with Japan and China, and even the same amount of trade we do with Mexico.
Yeah.
Last night, the past 2 days, actually, I've heard the president say that China is at fault. He's tried to put a racial epithet on this pandemic, Charlton.
Yeah.
Not to say that America has dropped the ball, and he has dropped the ball by cutting the Center of Disease Control in America's budget in half, Charlton, over the last 2 years. He says nothing about that. He's saying that China's at fault because we don't have the technology and the money put into our infectious disease center, Charlton, here in America, because he took it away because he felt it was more important to build a wall than to keep Americans safe from pandemics that occur, Charlton. He said a wall will keep Americans safe because of a few thousand people coming over the border versus millions that can be infected from a disease that is airborne, Jonathan, when we talk about that?
Well, I'm telling you, Thomas Robert Malthus, an English clerk and a scholar, published his theory in 1798 writings about Malthusianism, and it's been happening. It wasn't China that wanted to fund the wall as opposed to funding the Centers for Disease Control. And
Charlton, think about this.
Yeah.
If you walk to his constituents, if you walk to his base and ask them what are pathogens, they couldn't tell you. Half of them couldn't tell you what pathogens are, Charlton,
No.
because they deal with the racism of brown menace. Ask them what a pathogen is, and they'll have to ask somebody else to look it up for them.
Yeah.
Because that's what airborne is. That's what this disease is airborne. They're telling everybody, wash your hands, wash your hands. But if you cough, you sneeze, Charlton,
Yeah.
you breathe, it comes out. This is what this is. It's an airborne, and it was said yesterday that it can live for at least 2 hours in open air. This was said yesterday by the CDC.
Yeah.
It can live for at least 2 hours in open air. So I don't give a damn how many times you wash your hands and not rub your face. If you're walking, and this is why they say don't be in tight, confined air spaces, such as airplanes. Air travel hasn't stopped.
No.
And you're going to tell me that it's not in America and we haven't tested 1 million people in America yet?
Yeah.
And then when you look at the contagious rate of the people that have been tested, Charlton, and Dr. Fauci said that we're 2 weeks behind, if not more, in testing, that we should be 2 weeks advanced, and we're not. And there's no timetable of getting up to speed in America.
Yeah.
So you keep telling people not to shake hands, but also tell them don't breathe, don't cough, don't sneeze, and don't talk to people.
And when you go out to vote, remember who defunded the Centers for Disease Control and was trying to build a wall. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You know, I was telling you, Big C, that black men were the vanguard, or would be the vanguards for this pandemic. When it comes to sports, you know, all life came from Africa. I mean, Dr. Leakey Gregory Mendel, that's science also. But it was last night. I mean, I know Adam Silver's been given a lot of credit, but Adam Silver doesn't play basketball, the commissioner of the NBA, but he's done a fine job. However, it was those African-American players, the New Orleans Pelicans players, when they were in Northern California last night, they were ordered by the league to take the floor, okay? This was after it was announced about Rudy Gobert. Those African-American players, and some Caucasians too, they refused to take the floor against the Sacramento Kings. That was not Adam Silver. That was black men saying, my life is more important than this paycheck when somebody tells me go out and dribble. And I'm proud of that, because oftentimes, as members of our society, black intelligence is not necessarily celebrated, even though it exists and has been existing for hundreds of years, Big C. But for the most part, they'll say someone has a smart basketball IQ. Well, I just want to acknowledge these brilliant men who also understand science, and they also listen to the World Health Organization, and they refuse to go out and dribble, even though they were told to. Yeah, Adam Silver may get credit, but it was black men that were the vanguard of that. Big C, your thoughts?
But you got to give Adam Silver credit, Charlton, for making it public. He could have been like Mark Emmert. He could have been like every other person around in the world of sports and politics, and not let it be known that it had afflicted your industry.
Yeah.
Think about the number of corporate CEOs, Charlton, that have not let it be known that it has afflicted their industry. Just like the attorney in New York that they tracked down and they could attribute 50 cases to him.
Wow.
And that's the reason why that area was quarantined by the governor of New York, Charlton, because of this one individual.
Yeah.
The governor had precedents. It's just like Adam Silver. He let it be known. He could have kept it under wraps that Rudy Gobert had been afflicted with this coronavirus, and also Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
But it is his responsibility to the league and to the community, Charlton, and that's why those players were made aware of last night that this was in existence in the league.
Yeah.
And it came down to those players making a conscientious decision, but also understand the league had the right, Charlton, to pull that game. The players get a chance to vote, but the league ultimately has to pull that game.
Very well said. I still appreciate those men that are oftentimes told he has a high basketball IQ. No, he has a high life IQ. Sectors of the American life.
But also look at this, Charlton, when you talk about the high basketball IQ. All athletes have been aware of this coronavirus spread in the United States.
Yeah.
And it took the actions of commissioners to cancel the game last night and suspend league play, and even commissioners to cancel events. We talked about it earlier in the week.
Yeah, you did.
That I wanted all the athletes to pool together and say, we're not going to play. We made that statement Monday or Tuesday on our show.
Yeah.
And yet it came down to decisions between league officials, not the players. But even though they were a part of it, the league officials and commissioners had to make those decisions, Charlton, because players weren't that amped to give up their money right away, because they could have did this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They could have did it a week ago. But until the commissioner made the announcement, that's when they said, okay, we'll follow suit.
Yeah.
But they've had conference calls about this.
Yeah, better late than never. Big C, sectors of the American life that have been impacted by the coronavirus. Think about it, business and finance, the government, Big C, the workplace, everybody that goes to work and you're next to someone in a cubicle, the healthcare system, we don't want to overtax that. The religious institutions, they've canceled a lot of church services. People believe in God, but they better trust science, and it's science that made them close a lot of the churches. Big C, the educational institutions, sports and entertainment, that's where Big C Sports comes in, travel and tourism. I just want to say again, because it's important, because I'm talking to sponsors that pay millions of dollars to have people who are capable of telling the truth and supporting your message and sponsoring your product. If you Google everybody out there in the universe that has been bringing sports and some type of entertainment to the airwaves, it's so important for me to say this because we've been doing it for 4 years. This is not something we decided to do today. We didn't want to be dumbed down and play to the dumbest part of the American society. I'm not calling anybody dumb, but if you don't read, you're probably ignorant. That includes me too. That's why I read so much. So that's important. If you're going to put money behind a program, do you want to put money behind a program that tells the truth or that just yells louder and louder than the counter host? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as we look at the economic strife that is going to hit this country, we talked about it earlier. I'm not concerned about athletes because they have bank accounts.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the everyday worker in America. Those are the ones who don't have the bank accounts. Those are the support staffs in arenas, in the service industry. I talked about the restaurant industry yesterday. If you're not willing to go out in public, you're definitely not willing to go out to a restaurant and eat. You're not willing to travel and go stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
You're not really willing to get on an airline and take that unnecessary trip, Charlton. So everybody that's in those support bases and in the community, we don't understand as Americans how big the service industry are. What about the grocery stores? Are they going to be afflicted by this, Charlton? You going in and going to be nervous about going in, buying the supplies that you need to support your family.
Yeah.
Going to health facilities. Think about it. I got a dentist appointment coming up in a week. I got to go in and deal with those health workers. I don't know what their status is when they're, probing around in my mouth. And everybody else, Charlton, we rely on the service industry in America. It is the staple of America. We're not an industrial complex anymore.
Yeah.
We are a service-driven society because we import everything in this country. And so as those imports slow down, as the president put on tariffs and said cargo will be limited coming into this country, think about the goods and means that you need every day in this country, Charlton.
Yeah.
Just going to a simple convenience store, going to a pharmacy, Charlton, anywhere. Every American goes someplace every day where they rely on the service industry.
Yep.
Whether it's transportation, whether it's food, whether it's e-commerce. Think about the mass transit in America.
Yeah.
In those cities that have subways and rapid transit systems, bus systems, Charlton. People who rely on that who don't have cars. So when you think about the economic fallout in this country, and we're talking about rich-ass football players and basketball and baseball and hockey players, Charlton, that's the least of my concerns. I'm worried about the layman everyday person.
Yeah, like people just saying, do the pause, do the Big C pause on all the sports leagues, and just let science get on top of it the same way they've got on the top of other things. Big C, the Premier Leagues, the soccer leagues over in Europe, the Premier League clubs, they prepare for suspension over the coronavirus outbreak. And I think there's an Arsenal manager, there was some talk that someone had confirmed that a gentleman had tested positive for coronavirus. And that's in Europe for soccer. So the Premier Soccer League is one of the biggest leagues. in the universe when it comes to soccer. And you're dealing with countries, Spain, Italy, Portugal, the Netherlands, Ireland, the United States have all been suspended amid the outbreak, while the German and Bangladesh and France leagues are holding matches behind closed doors. Doesn't make any sense. But again, sometimes you're on the hook for the money, so they gotta put the sacrificial lamb out there to do it. But they'll wake up soon. They just gotta follow science. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, this is where you talked about NBA players being prescient, and I said it was the commissioner. This is the same thing. If players are prescient around the world, then players would have took that stance weeks ago.
No. Yeah.
They're not. It's about them trying to earn income. We don't know the economic situation of all the players in the world. Everybody is not a multi-million-dollar athlete. Some people make tens of thousands. Some people make hundreds of thousands. It all depends on where you are in the world. And if you're the lifeline for your family and you're one of those tens of thousands of dollar athletes, Charlton, you're needing to go to work.
Yeah.
And so being behind closed doors and no crowd around, Charlton, it's up to the discretion of the athlete. Let me know how intelligent the individual is saying that I'm not going to participate.
Yeah.
You think about the NCAA athletes when they talked about players wanting to play and those asinine comments from some coaches saying that these players are missing out. They polled some NCAA players, Charlton. They said that they were concerned about playing, that they didn't have a say-so in the matter. And I wish that they had all boycotted together. But players and their families were having concern the minute the talk of this virus broke out and finding out that it was a pathogen virus, Charlton. Knowing that these players in proximity, passing body fluids and speaking and coughing and yelling in each other's face, Charlton, would be exposing each other to this, that they weren't all that apt wanting to play in the NCAA tournament. This was the money wanting the players to play.
It's always the money. You don't want to take something home to your children just because of money. The European football governing body is called UEFA, moved closer towards postponing the 2020 European Championships final, which is due to be held at Wembley Stadium, Big C, in 2021, and the officials will discuss the future of the tournament next week. And then Real Madrid, one of the biggest soccer league teams in the universe, Big C, the Championship League match against Manchester City next Tuesday. It was delayed after a basketball player from the Madrid team, which shares the same training facilities, tested positive for the virus. I just want to add my own 2 cents. For people going to gyms, and I even take, when I go to get gasoline, I get the paper towels they give you to clean off your windshield. I put that on my hand before I even grab that handle. That's touched by hundreds of people a day to even put gas in my car. When you go to the gym, you don't have to trust that they're wiping down the equipment. You got people sweating on the equipment. Take your own towel, your own sanitizers. There are all type of sanitizers that will actually kill that virus, or at least 99% of it, Big C. That's so important to trust ourselves, and don't worry about what some gym is doing. If you even want to go to the gym and be around people sweating, you don't know if they're healthy or not, Big C. That makes any sense.
Well, that gas pump handle that you grab is probably the healthiest thing that you can put your hand on out in public. When you think about what gas is made of, Charlton, it will kill any bacteria. So the gym is something that I would avoid 100%. Pumping gas, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because when you think about the petroleum product, Charlton, there's nothing that can live in a petroleum product. And that gas handle pump has fumes and spillage on it all day long.
Yeah, I still put a napkin on my hand before I get gas. I've been doing it for a long time. But yeah, everybody has to do a little bit of pausing about playing sports. And again, it was so disingenuous when I hear some of these 7-figure white men. They didn't ask the athletes to say it. They were on TV with some lacrimose speech. I can't believe that my boys can't play their final basketball game. They had a chance to win a championship. They were not going to make any money whether they wanted it or not. That money was going to get your pocket. I'm just so proud of what you and I talked about when we started this show. You can't please everybody. Not even Jesus could. Who are we to try? I just want to give information and facts. And because I know there's some national sponsors that listen in that have been just paying attention, vetting the shows that we do, and I want them to do their homework. Do your homework. Don't look at people who capitulated about what's important. Just follow the path record of what somebody's been doing before you decide to put $1 million into some program. Let the facts speak for themselves. Big C, I know we talk so much about players that are going to sign a multi-million-dollar contract, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, NHL. And I know the NHL, they're following suit about suspending league play. And it's a breath of fresh air. Even baseball will suspend all operations indefinitely. And I know up here in Northern California, even on the West Coast, we have Safeco Field up in Seattle. We have the beautiful Coliseum in Oakland that nobody wants to play in anymore. We have the beautiful Oracle Arena, formerly AT&T Park in San Francisco, home of the Giants, this Chase Center. And then there's the iconic Dodger Stadium at Chavez Ravine. You know, we were just talking the other day, Big C, is money more important than health? I think the message has finally hit L.A. that health maybe should at least trump money while science gets on top of things. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not L.A., Charlton. It's America. All major sports have been suspended or canceled indefinitely, Charlton, in North America.
Yeah.
Whether it's collegiate or professional. So no league or organization is immune right now, whether it's soccer, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, Charlton, track and field, swimming. Every type of sporting event has been canceled. Golf is the only one that I know of that is playing, but the public is not allowed out on the course, and it may end up being canceled soon, Charlton.
Yeah.
But every major sport, and golf, it's semi a sport, even though I play it, I can't always classify it as a sport because I ride around on the course. I'm not working hard.
I thought your name was Four in the golf course.
This is something that's taken from the World Health Organization, Charlton, is that these commissioners are showing responsibility, empathy for the public as well as the workers within their field, whether they're collegiate or professional. They're showing empathy and caution. And that's what's needed. As I said, and I've said every day this week, there has to be an adult in the room somewhere.
I agree.
That adult needs to make a decision. Just like when you tell your kids no more cookies, you got to be the adult and can't say, okay, have one more.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad and I'm happy, even though it's late. And it kind of pissed me off for a few days that nobody would go out there and say, no, this is the stance we're going to take because of the money's on the table.
Yeah.
We're going to forget about the money for right now and be more concerned with the cost of human life, not the cost of missing a game.
Yeah.
And so finally we've had an awakening in the world of sports, in the world of reality in America, and not just sports. I mean, we can talk about sports, but we're having an awakening in the reality of America.
Yeah.
But as I keep going back to, my biggest concern is not the sports. It's the people who were not playing the sports, the people who were supporting the arena.
Yeah.
Not the fans who could afford a ticket, but those people whose livelihood was dependent on being at that arena or on the outside of that arena working, Charlton.
Yeah, and I agree. Even tonight's schedule that was canceled, NBA, Chicago at Orlando, Boston, Milwaukee, Memphis at Portland, Brooklyn at Golden State, and Houston at LA Lakers.
But think about those games you're talking about canceled, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you made a statement earlier, there's 15 players on each team, okay?
Each team, yeah.
How many support staff are in those arenas? Throw those 15 players out that you're talking about and the coaching staff. Let's say 25 people involved with the team, 30 people with the trainers.
Yeah.
How many people were in the support staff in that arena? Concessions, vendors,
a lot.
Security. How many people?
Yeah, there's a lot. That's very well said. And I know...
So do you think that they're concerned about a game not being played and those players not getting their paycheck? Or they're more concerned about how are they going to... You know, their kids can't go to school now. A lot of school districts have been canceled.
Yeah.
And a lot of them relied on that money. Now that their kids at home every day, are they going to have enough money to get through the week feeding their kids? Can they pay the power bill, Charlton? Are they going to have to ask for relief on their rent because all of them don't own houses?
Yeah.
Are they going to have enough money to even go out and try to get something else if they don't have transportation and relying on public transportation, exposing themselves even more?
Yeah, that's very true, and I hope that there'll be some help from companies with that and dealing with that. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on 2 apps that I really love called Google or Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that, launching the real estate listing channel in the spring of 2020. The goal, 100 real estate brokers to list your properties on TV. McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, banks do it, food stores do it, grocery stores do it, and you could do it too. Take your real estate to the next level. You could do that with the Big C team. Big C, in closing, you know, we can all pause. I'm so glad that the powers that be, they did not allow POTUS to gut everything in our healthcare system, especially for elderly people. I have elderly people in my family that I love dearly. I want to make sure that they are not compromised by some jingoistic, xenophobic president that no one calls to check. All I'm saying is Google it. Google what we say, Google what POTUS says. And for those of you who are his base, whether it's a Sean Hannity or a Rush Limbaugh, there's a lot of people that listen to you. And they may be dumb because they don't challenge what you tell them. If they tell you 1 + 1 is 19, they're probably dumb. But some people believe them. So we have an incredible responsibility. I hope that we can Google what our Congress is doing, do it what the Senate's doing, the House is doing. We got to make sure we're in tune with what our political leaders are doing, and that includes our own doctors and scientists that keep us healthy. Big C, I know we do sports, but we do everything. We're not just sycophants. What message would you want to give? And I would even say to you, postpone your dentist appointment. The NBA players did it. Postpone having somebody put tools in your mouth. You don't know where they've been. I mean, that's my opinion. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as you know, when we think about all the backers of the president and all of his base, as he's sitting here talking about cutting entitlements in America, talking about cutting Social Security, talking about cutting Medicaid, talking about cutting food stamps. And food stamps, Charlton, as he talking about people on entitlements, but he wants to take this money and build a wall. Think about how many people in America now are in need of food stamps, Charlton, when they're not going to be working.
Wow.
Especially those parents who have kids that their only meals of the day were going to school, getting lunch and breakfast.
That's true.
Those are the kids that I worry about. Like I said, I give less than a damn about a millionaire athlete. I was an athlete once, wasn't in that $1 million category. They didn't pay it back then.
Yeah.
But as we're concerned about Americans, Charlton, I'm not concerned about athletics. I'm concerned about kids that are going to go hungry now, Charlton. Kids that are going to have to do without because the wealthy have it all and they don't have it. So as much as we talk about sports, the only way you get to be as a professional athlete is that you start out as a kid, Charlton, and you have a healthy upbringing that gives you an opportunity to potentially get to that level.
Yeah.
Think about the number of kids who are going to miss out on that, Charlton, because of health reasons and lack of nutrition.
That's very true, and that oftentimes affects a lot of communities of color. And I just hope, and I mean, I like hoping, I even like praying, but what I really love is making sure that I'm in touch with what science says. Again, wash our hands, wash your nose, keep sure your face is clean, your nose, your mouth, your eyes, and make sure we tell our kids that too. For the world of sports, I love this bit. I love this business. I love it. It's cathartic for me, Big C. Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to be it. And stepping away from letting mainstream tell me yes or no and creating our own platform, it's really allowed me to breathe. And I love breathing. And I just employ other people, the college kids where your coaches are crying that their $1 million bonus may not happen and that you could have played your last free game, free labor for them. Take the time to make sure your family's safe. Some of you might be the first generation to go to college, especially a lot of kids of color. Make sure you're taking the knowledge that you learn at school and take it back to your communities, even if it's just a phone call or a text, and let people know that there are ways to stay safe. We got to trust science, and that's so important. Big C, your thoughts before we close?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's always been there about trusting science. But when you politicize a situation in this country, Charlton, saying that it's one party's way to try to weaken you in your rerun for presidency, Charlton, that this is a hoax, and that if they had not have been concentrating on impeachment, that you would have been able to concentrate on the virus. I think what the House was doing in impeachment, Charlton, was totally separate from the president. His job was to run the country and stay on top of world affairs, not be concerned about what the House is doing. Two totally separate entities.
Yeah.
But he was spending so much time blocking people from testifying, Charlton, that he forgot to look out for the American public because he was looking out covering his own ass during that time.
Yep.
And by doing that, Charlton, he dropped the ball. He dropped the whole damn mountain on this country, Charlton, letting our health fall behind what his personal desires and needs were.
That's why we ask everybody to Google Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
What I'm looking forward to in the sports universe, Charlton, is that all of these owner billionaires come together and look out for the employees of these arenas and stadium, Charlton. All of the support staff, all of the workers inside and outside, Charlton, that will not be working events. Help them out financially. Pull a few dollars out of your pocket, put up a slush fund, and distribute it between all those arena and stadium workers so that they can support their families and keep their health care afloat.
Very well said. Everybody, Google math and science. Google our health system. Google how to keep yourself safe every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, it's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.